Brothers and sisters, let us pray. Creating and loving God, we gather here this afternoon very much aware that you are a God of infinite inspiration and countless ways of revealing yourself to us. We come here this day giving thanks for the generosity of those who have made this new place beautiful and wonderful. And we come asking your blessing on this gathering and upon this building. We pray that the walls of this building will hear the hopes and dreams of the thousands of students who will pass through its doors. And may they dwell in comfort and safety. Let us never forget those who have called this home before, and let us not forget their leadership, their memories, and joy. May this building be a light to those whose spirits are stirred to befriend neighbors, those who have great late-night conversations, those who will fill these halls with laughter. Lord, help them to express their feelings, their wisdom and knowledge, so that they may grow friendships and bonds that last lifetimes. Bless all those who come to call their campus home, those who gather to live and learn within this space, so that they may join with all those who have done so in the past and those who will do so in the future. Amen.
Well, it's a great joy. We have seats, so please come and sit down. There's plenty of seats here to make yourselves comfortable. Welcome to this joyous, really wonderful occasion in the life of the history. We come not just to celebrate the completion of the renovation of this building, but also the renovation of many other buildings that are part of a comprehensive residence hall renovation program. Just this afternoon, Dean of Students Richard Panley and I got an email from former trustee Todd Fleming, and he enclosed an article, and it talked about the importance of where our students live as a part of their overall experience. And the article pointed out, I haven't had a chance to read it in detail yet, but it pointed out that our students spend only a relatively small portion of their time in class, that much of the student experience is determined by the spaces where they gather, where they live, and that the quality of those spaces matters, not just retention and graduation rate success for our students, but also for the quality of the experience during their 4 years here. And of course, the centerpiece of that comprehensive renovation project for our residence halls is this building, Venable Hall. You can read about the long and remarkable history of this building in the program, and I encourage you to do so. It's on the back of the program that you have. But I want to give you a little bit of the recent history of this building, which is just as remarkable, if not more remarkable. We had a plan to give this building what we called a refresh. We had closed it in the summer of 2019. We knew the roof leaked like a sieve. We knew if the building was going to continue to stand, we needed to replace the roof. And we thought we'd paint the rooms. And that was really what we were going to do. And what I used to tell my students is one of the great advantages of getting old is you start to have the opportunity to see how seemingly unrelated things come together in very fortuitous ways. One of the fortuitous ways that it came together was we hired Kevin Miller as the director of our facilities. And Kevin had had the opportunity to work at other campuses, including the University of Virginia. And he said, you really have in Venable an architectural and engineering treasure. And if we just fix the roof and paint the rooms, we will not give the building the kind of attention it really deserves. He had also had the opportunity to work with an incredible architectural firm, MCWB, which has a practice that focuses on historic renovation projects. And he brought them, and they confirmed what we knew, that we did have, what Kevin had told us, that we did have an architectural and engineering gem here in this building. And I want to, you're going to hear in just a second from one of the principals, Larry Wilson, but I want to just recognize these folks. Kevin, please stand up. And also, and Larry, where are you? And Tom Burgess, please, you guys stand up too. And Brendan Teteo and Eric Bouchard. going out on a limb here, but I think that this project was as rewarding for you as it was any professional project that you've all had an opportunity to work on. And of course, the other wonderful coincidence was the appearance of very generous benefactors who wanted to take our vision and our dreams and make it a reality. And we are very, very grateful. We'll be revealing those donors here today. And we are very, very grateful because without people who are willing to fund a vision doesn't really go very far. And it is, I'll just go ahead and say that our generous benefactor is the Endeavor Legacy Foundation. The principals behind that foundation are Jean and Kathy Hickok. Kathy is the daughter of Stanley Pauly. And I want to mention this because this has happened twice in a very recent time period for us where we had a vision and we had a donor who stepped forward. The other project was the Science Center. We had worked on the Science Center. We had a vision for it. We had a great plan. We had put together a task force of trustees and faculty. We had a really exciting vision, and it was sitting there, and at almost the same exact time, Mr. Pauly said, you know, I'd like to help build a science building for you. And so we've had two recent incidences where we had a vision for an exciting project, an important project, and then we've had the ability to go ahead and have those visions realized because the funding has come along for those. And I can't emphasize the importance of both of those. We'd still be wondering how we were going to pay for the science building if Mr. Pauly hadn't stepped forward, and we'd probably still be wondering, should we try to do anything more than paint and fix the roof on this building if Endeavor Legacy hadn't said, yes, we want to make this project a reality for you. So, yes, thank you. My own view is that this only happens because we're being blessed, that the success that we're seeing here at this college, the momentum that we're seeing at this college is really providential, and I am incredibly grateful for that. As this project was nearing completion, we also had the insight to say, let's gather from across the campus, they were truly scattered all over the place, the portraits of the college's presidents from these various locations across campus. And let's put them in here and have this wonderful hall, which is going to host so many public events. It always has, and it's going to continue. Let's put these portraits here and tell a story about the history of the college through the events that happened during the various college presidencies. As we started that project, we realized there were a number of the portraits that needed to be conserved. There was actually work that needed to be done to preserve those portraits. And we also realized, well, we have some presidents who made important contributions to the college, and we don't have a portrait for them. So what you see are the portraits that we have. They're in good shape. One was hung this afternoon, John Blair Smith back there in the back. And the gaps are where either the painting is being conserved or we have a new painting that's been commissioned that will be the painting of that president. We're also working on those biographies and those histories, and it'll be put together in a way that when you come in, you'll be able to access that history and you'll be able to see the history of the college through the tenure of these various presidents. Thanks to this effort to Angie Way and others. I mean, many people have had a hand in this, but really couldn't have gotten it off the ground without their assistance. I don't want to repeatedly come up and interrupt the flow of the program, so let me offer an overview of the program and introduce those who are going to speak. First, we're going to have a musical selection by the men's chorus. They're going to sing a wonderful American hymn for us. This particular music selection, I think, is important for a number of reasons. One, it reminds us that this building's first use was as the Union Theological Seminary headquarters. And so it was very much a religious institution. Secondly, the tune is an American tune, and it was either written or first compiled as a set of hymns at about the same time this building was completed in the early 1930s. It also is, I think, important because the words celebrate the firm foundation on which this building has stood and on which it will stand. And just like this building stands on a firm foundation, our whole college stands on the firm foundation of the mission to form good men and good citizens. And finally, it just happens to be one of my favorite hymns. So the men's chorus is led by Professor Helena von Ruden. Every year the group is so good, I think it can't get better, and every year the group gets better and better, and so we really appreciate her leadership and the contribution that the men's chorus is going to make to today's program. Earlier I mentioned Lawrence Wilson. He's the principal one of the principals at MCWB, who has helped shepherd this project along from beginning to conception to completion. And he's going to tell us about the reasons we should take pride in the architectural and engineering value of this building. Drew Blankenship is our student body president. He will then accept this building on behalf of the student body symbolically. Drew is a senior mathematical economics major and a history and math minor from Midlothian, Virginia. And then our keynote address today is given by Tommy Shomo, class of 1969, who needs no introduction to the Hampden-Sydney community. Surely one of the most important keepers of the flame of all that is good, that is Hampden-Sydney. And after Tommy's message, I'll come back and guide us through the remainder of the program. But Helena and the men's chorus, we're looking forward to hearing from you now.
Good afternoon. My name is Larry Wilson, principal at Misa Cohen Wilson Baker Architects, and I'm honored and grateful to be here today and to have been on this project working with this extraordinary institution over the last 4 years. And I've been asked to give some context to the restoration, renovation work we've done here, and to keep it limited, so I will try to do so. You know, just a little context with our firm. We've been working for literally decades on many of the Jefferson and buildings in Virginia, Monticello, Poplar Forest, UVA, for decades. So we have a lot of experience with dealing with regional, not to mention Mount Vernon, a major project right now. So we understand the context that this building is in, and I only mention our involvement in those projects because this building sits in that context, and the construction of it was driven by literally workmen who had partaken in Jefferson's buildings. So, so the significance of the building is well anchored in very good company, While Venable Hall does not have the prominence, obviously, of Monticello or Poplar Forest, the significance can't be overstated in many other respects. which I will get into. And it was important for us to communicate that, I think, and for the college to communicate to the alumni to engender the interest in the project. All of these classical buildings that I mentioned, particularly Jefferson's, belong in what is referred to as the federal style, and that because it dates to the earliest periods, the federal period in American history and in the United States. And particularly for Venable Hall, it fits into the Jeffersonian style within that federal period. Those influences that Jefferson had were really from studying Roman architecture and many of the publications of Roman and later Renaissance architecture, and particularly Andrea Palladio was a huge influence on him. And these are all the influences that form this classical style that was so important to the education, the early education of American citizens. Thomas Jefferson abhorred high-style fashion of urban architects, and you will find in his architecture and in Venable Hall there is a simplicity, almost modernity to the appearance of the buildings. They're strong, symmetrical, but unified by materials, but they're not overly adorned typically. And that certainly is the case here. So the story behind Venable Hall and its significance, you know, it was conceived as a single block of a building that in the central area where we're sitting with two wings that go on either side, and it was conceived as a single idea. And very interestingly and somewhat unusually, it had a sister building, which is Cushing Hall, which is on axis immediately across a vast lawn, if you will. Two separate institutions at the time, but they were unified by these almost identical buildings in axis with very classically in axis with each other. Fortuitously, this building became part of the Hampden-Sydney community of buildings in the 1890s, and that was. So, but that unification of classical symmetry and formality is present in that. These two twin buildings are, in fact, with some minor exceptions, the oldest buildings on the Hampden-Sydney complex. So they are really the anchors to the history and the evolution of the architectural style that has been extraordinarily consistent. And what defines Hampden-Sydney architecturally and historically is this unified campus. There aren't a lot of radically modern buildings on here, any. It has a continuity, a consistency. I often think of Florence, Italy or something, as usually a contiguous red roof city. Well, this is in some ways the American equivalent on a campus. Interestingly about this building, it was built in two phases. It was conceived as a single building, but it was first construction occurred as in the stagger, in which is one half of the east wing, and it was built by people where history has forgotten the names of whom, while Cushing Hall and the rest of this building was built by some very notable carpenters and craftsmen that worked for Jefferson. As such, the rest of the building differs from the stagger. And some of the engineering issues that were prevalent in stagger, like the masonry. One thing anybody can go out and see is that the bricks in Stagger Inn on the side, first part, are very irregular, handmade bricks. They're very irregular, wide joints in the masonry. It's almost more colonial than it is federal in its sort of raw handmadeness. Whilst this portion or later portions of the building, the brick was much more refined. The bricks are larger, more regular, and you can really see the thinner joints, very fine joints. So you can really see the shift in that 8-year period between this earlier technology and craftsmanship and the later. Interestingly, the first period, it was this cruder masonry. What they did is they washed the building with an iron oxide, made it all like a stain the whole thing. This is just a stagger, not this brick. And then they paint the joints very thin with a white paint. So they made it appear as though it was a very fine, refined building. And you can see that. It's still there, particularly in the attic, but you can even see on the outside that wash, the penciling, we call it. Just a very interesting feature of this building. Didn't have to happen in this because the workmanship and the ability to manufacture more precise bricks had developed. Other things like Stagger has wrought nails. Every nail is made by hand. It's really a colonial period building, built in the 1820s. Whilst this building uses much later technology. It's nails that are cut on a machine, a press. It's the evolution of technology in America is really happening in the middle of this whole eight-year period of construction. So it's very interesting that way. One other thing I'll mention is this room is a 40-foot span in both directions. That's a long way. And above us, there are rooms. There are rooms for students, all above us. And then there's a roof and there's a cupola. So this is a very long span with a lot of load, a floor load and a roof load and a cupola. And the engineering to produce this span and to carry those loads is remarkable. And if you go on the third floor, the quarters, it's a double-loaded quarter. Actually, these quarters are trusses. They're diagonal members of the cord, top and bottom cords, and they have wrought iron tension rods that support it. So there's a whole truss system. It's built, you never see it because it's the quarter walls. And it's really an interesting integration of technology and engineering and the architectural result of the building. Yeah, I mentioned engineering. So in 1831, when the final building was opened, it must have been incredible. In Stagger Inn, they had 24 students in that one little 40 by 40 building. They had 24 students, 3 per room. They had the headmaster. I don't know if I have the term right, but and his family living on the first floor. They had a chapel. They had a library. They had a lecture hall, all in that building. They had servants' quarters that are still there in the attic. Enslaved people, servants' quarters, and they're still there. We preserved them. They're up in the attic of Stagger Inn. And so this little building housed all of these functions of the seminary in that little building. And when this opens, it must have been just grand. All this space, this big chapel. Every room with a fireplace. Every single room had its own fireplace. 10 years later, there wouldn't have been fireplaces. There would have been stoves. So it's in a cusp of time that is just really interesting in terms of it's locked in the federal period, but it's got 1 foot in the later 19th, the evolution of technology in the 19th century. Fascinating thing. Why is it important? It's recognized on the National Register of Historic Places. That's a simple way that it's important. It's locally revered. I think that everybody on this campus, an employee, anybody around here, the convocation is held on front. I mean, it is the revered locally building. It gave form to their whole campus over a period of 200 years. I mean, the form, the color, the shapes, the federal style of this building translated and populated the campus for 200 years. It's continued use, dormitories for 200 years, the same use, uninterrupted. What building does that? And interestingly, it is so well suited to a modern dormitory. It's a double-loaded quarter. It was a simple design from its inception. It still functions beautifully in that capacity. It's a double-loaded quarter, nice rooms on either side. So it's still modern, if you will. Less tangible things that make it so important is the memory. It embodies memory, embodies spirits, I think I heard in prayer, the spirits of all the people who have been here, and the memory of the people still alive who come back here, and all of the friendships that were forged in these rooms, in these spaces, and the importance of having people as they age and get older to have that connection to their youth and to their formative years in a building like this is invaluable, and it's so important to be preserved, and you have, thank you. And its value in education, I think was mentioned by Dr. Stimper, the importance of residents, the quality of residents in overall education. And this, we hope, brings that quality. We peeled away all these layers of material back to the original materials that we had was left. There was a lot of damage done. There's a lot of warts and moles and scars you'll see as you walk around here, but we embrace that. We exploit it, we hope, and we feel like all of that that's all evidence of authenticity for people living here. It's not just a new wannabe look-alike building that's in perfect shape. It has all of those memories and those scars and all that spirit to it, and we really try to exploit that as much as we possibly could. I just want to say, I'm not going to have time to thank all the people, and I couldn't because there's too many. My staff and the design team, thank you. The construction team, English, thank you. Kevin, thank you. And Dr. Stimper, thank you so much for allowing us to do this work. I hope you enjoy it.
Good afternoon to you all, and thank you for being here today. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve as this year's president of the student body. I'd first like to take a moment to thank all the members in the student government up here. You all run this college like a well-oiled machine, and at many times make my job a lot less stressful than I imagined it could be. As we speak, the members of the CAC are over by the field house setting up for tonight's homecoming concert. So thank you for all of y'all. Looking back at my freshman year, I would have never expected to find myself in this position, nor foresee the drastic change in my character and personal life that has occurred over these few short years. The person I once was is remarkably different than the man I'm becoming. I'm truly grateful for the Hampden-Sydney experience and the many wonderful moments I've had here that are forever etched into my heart. Of course, today we're here to dedicate Venable Hall, a place of historical and cultural significance to all of us here today and to the generations of Hampden-Sydney men who have come before us. When I was asked by Dean Panley to speak today, I began reflecting about the significance of projects like Pauley and Venable, but also about the direction of the college, how much we've grown, developed, and enhanced the student and campus life over the past 4 years. Just as an example, compared to my first year here, Venable has transformed from a dilapidated, empty, likely haunted brick hall with dark and gloomy interior, primarily used to house students in COVID isolation, to an ever-present construction zone, to now a shining symbol of the momentum and future of Hampden-Sydney College. Of course, with a polite nod to our past, given the historic restoration within, this building has not only been restored to its former glory, but even further beyond. Now, Venable is a place so full of life once more. A beautiful place for our students to call home for a while. A beautiful place for our students to live, learn, to grow alongside their peers. As a resident of Venable this year, I'm overwhelmed with gratitude to be able to spend a short part of my life here in this historic building. I feel very fortunate to have attended Hampden-Sydney when I did, because I was able to witness a significant amount of change, more change than our campus has seen in many years, but change for the good. Bagby fell so Pauley could rise up, the Alphabet dorms took on a new interior, White House has been renovated and expanded, Gilmer Hall and the Carpenters are next up to be serviced. So much restorative chaos in such a short time for our small campus. But there's also beauty and purpose within this chaos. Within the shut down parking lots, the occasional nail in one's tire, and annoyingly loud sounds of construction equipment at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's a beautiful reminder of the possibilities of our future. That beauty is now quickly and ever more becoming the physical space of our college, right before our very eyes. In other words, we grow closer every day to reflecting the spirit and soul of Hampden-Sydney beyond just the ethereal and into the physical. This spirit is fueled by the lives of those who fill the classrooms, the residence halls, the sidewalks, a spirit defined by endearing brotherhood, the mission, and the liberal arts. I've spent a considerable amount of time speaking with Dean Panley during my time at Hampden-Sydney, especially since my election as student body president. We both agree that the spirit of Hampden-Sydney is one of the most important drivers of our future. During one of our conversations, one thing he said really stuck with me, which I think is relevant to share today. He said, "What differentiates Hampden-Sydney from others is that our culture, our environment, allows our students to develop an innate and contagious desire to steward the future of this college. This is the result of each student's unique pursuit of a virtuous life, of happiness, and of course, our mission. In this regard, this college has long stood as a beacon for the extraordinary in a world dominated by a lot of ordinary. Projects like Venable have further energized the spirit of this college by ensuring that we, the students, have an extraordinary environment in which we can thrive, energizing our own stewardship of this place so that we can leave behind an even more remarkable Hampden-Sydney for the next generations to experience. I recently visited Virginia Tech and the University of Florida to see some friends from my hometown, and some people, out of curiosity or sometimes jest, asked about what it's like to attend a college like this. These conversations were late in the evening and many words were spoken, but I don't think I ever really hit the mark on what it is I love so much. I think there's something great about that. Life here on the Hill is a sort of numinous experience, some grand idea in existence that can't quite be put into words. Living it is knowing it. What I did learn from these conversations with my friends is that there's clearly something vacuous about their college experience, something missing. I left those conversations wishing they too had made the choice to come here so they could understand the transformation this place provides. But I also admittedly felt relieved that I did not choose to attend their schools. It's hard for me to imagine what life would be like, who I would be now, if I had not made the critical decision to attend this extraordinary college at this amazing time in our history. So, on behalf of a grateful student body, I, as the president of the student body, wish to extend our heartfelt thanks for the wonderful gift we all find in the new restored Venable Hall and Poly, and the many additional renovations recently completed and still in progress. Thank you for your vision, for your generosity, and for believing in this extraordinary college and our students. Hope all have a wonderful evening.
I have a nostalgic affection for Venable Hall, having lived here for half of my college life. As a freshman, my roommate David Stratinger and I shared W24. My senior year as an RA, I returned as an RA to the west end of the third floor with Howie Suchek, a sophomore, holding down the east end. I climbed the front steps of this building hundreds of times with greater ease and speed than I can now. I and my fellow freshmen knew that Venable was old. The basic nature of the modern amenities was obvious. We did not know or think much, if at all, about its history. In a place like Hampden-Sydney, it seemed completely natural to live in such a building. In 1965, bicentennial was 10 years away. John Brinkley's history of the college was 29 years away. There was no college museum. Hampden-Sydney wore its history casually. Students had a sense of that history without necessarily knowing many of the facts. We were, however, proud of what we knew, or thought we knew, and committed to college tradition. In the last decade, Hampden-Sydney has been wise to distinguish between old buildings that outlived their purpose and historic buildings which embody the spirit of the college. We have replaced the former with new buildings in the federal style, which have enhanced and provided architectural continuity to the campus. But Venable deserved nothing less than the sensitive restoration it received. Its solid walls have stood for nearly 200 years and embody the college's commitment to character and integrity. The restoration of Venable has not produced an historical curiosity to be gawked at, where a rope blocks the door to a room, and you can only peek in and try to imagine what life was like 100 years ago. Venable is a living entity, as it always has been. Here men live and experience the excitement and sometimes sorrow of being young and filled with the energy, promise, and challenges of youth. When the college opened in 1775, control was passed from Hanover Presbytery to an independent board. and Samuel Stanhope Smith designed a general curriculum which was non-sectarian. It was, however, not an education without acknowledgement of God and appreciation for the impact of the Christian faith on both individuals and institutions. The founders knew that a good man needs to believe in something greater than himself, and a good citizen needs to understand that there is a greater good to be achieved. Society has adopted a much broader acceptance of religious beliefs than did the founders, but that does not alter for the college the importance of faith in a higher being by whatever name or by no name at all. Out of that earliest commitment to God and Christianity, there evolved from Hampden-Sydney College Union Seminary to supply Presbyterian ministers to both Virginia and North Carolina. Near the end of the 19th century, the Union Seminary buildings were joined to the Hampden-Sydney campus, expanding and enhancing the college facilities. Initially, Hampden-Sydney had so much additional space it could not utilize it all. Historic buildings stand witness. Venable saw young men from Union Seminary join students from Hampden-Sydney College to go off to defend the Confederacy. It saw the soldiers of the 5th Corps of the Union Army camp behind it and wade Appomattox and the end of the war that divided the country. The enslaved men who built Venable could not have dreamed that 130 years later, one of their race, Alphonso White, would enroll as a freshman and live in WG3. Venable saw the near closure of Hampden-Sydney during the World War II, and this newly named Schoellkopf Family and Friends Lounge served as the mess hall for the men of the Navy V-12 program that allowed the college to survive. Buildings are not all that Hampden-Sydney has found worth keeping. The original mission of the college, to form good men and good citizens, has grounded and guided the college for well more than 2 centuries. It is an example of how an ideal can guide without providing specifics. In 200 years, the cultural definition of good has changed for both men and citizens, but the challenge to seek to be something better than what we are, caring, engaged, striving for the common good rather than only personal gain, in short, civic virtue, continues unchanged. Hampden-Sydney College was founded in uncertain and troubled times, as the British colonies in America began a war of independence which would last 7 years and only provide the nation with a weak and dysfunctional central government. It would be another 5 years before the Constitution was ratified. Can we fully understand the uncertainty and strife of those years? I believe Hampden-Sydney's founders, many of the descendants of practical Scots, did fully understand what the new nation was facing and how hard the early years would be. And it was their goal to educate men who were equipped to lead that new nation. We can be sure that Smith and his classmate at the College of New Jersey, James Madison, discussed with their mentor, John Witherspoon, what education the citizen of a republic needed. It is easy to forget how theoretical the concept of a republic was in the 18th century. The Greek republics disintegrated millennia earlier, and the Roman Republic had been lost to imperial rule. The 18th century was the age of absolute rulers. English constitutional monarchy gave some guidance, and individual colonies had experimented with expanding the concept of participatory government, always under the watchful eye of Great Britain. But this was going to be something different. What to teach these citizens and leaders of this new republic? A commitment to civic responsibility, the importance of character and the development of public virtue, to value freedom of expression and to acquire the skills to engage in public discussion and debate, and fix in their minds that civil discourse is the essence of public debate and the only means by which a democratic society is advanced. This is quite a task for a handful of teachers, isolated in the woods with 100 teenage boys, many as young as 14 who had probably never been away from home before. But I don't believe that Smith ever said to himself, this isn't going to work out. I believe that because my mother was a descendant of Scottish Presbyterians, and I never heard her say that. This isn't going to work out. I'm sure Sammy never heard that from his mother either. Smith and his colleagues got about doing what they had resolved to do, form good men and good citizens, and Hampden-Sydney has stuck to it ever since. What's worth keeping? This splendid old building is solid and resilient as a life of integrity and inner strength, the life of a good man. The ideals of liberty, equality, natural rights, and self-government which shape the life of a good citizen. And of course, Hampden-Sydney College itself, whose sons have made and will continue to make important and worthwhile contributions to society and our republic, the preservation of which underpins it all. In these contentious and volatile times, both nationally and internationally, we should recall the words of Benjamin Franklin. As the story goes, as he emerged from what we now call Independence Hall after the final vote on the Constitution, an anxious Philadelphian, Elizabeth's willing pal, asked, "Well, doctor, what do we have?" Which Franklin replied, "A republic, if you can keep it." How do we go about keeping our republic? In a world of sovereigns and subjects, the founders focused on the citizen. Subjects need only be loyal to their sovereign, but citizens need to be loyal to their nation. And that is more difficult because a sovereign is singular and a nation is a conglomeration. We should not forget how diverse the inhabitants of the 13 American colonies were. There was no single religion. Different languages were spoken. There were multiple racial and ethnic groups, and many were immigrants or the children of immigrants. There's ample historical evidence that American colonists in the 18th century did not like each other or agree with each other or trust each other any more than do Americans in the 21st century. They didn't particularly get along, but enough of them did decide to get together and work first for independence from Great Britain and then for the establishment of effective government. Critical to those efforts was the good citizen. As I said, there are multiple definitions of good, but good always means better than average. A good student, a good athlete, a good soldier. Good citizens give more to the whole and try harder to rise above individual self-interest. And good citizens are motivated by commitment to ideals which foster unity. After the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Franklin reminded his fellow delegates, we must all hang together, but most assuredly we shall all hang separately. In July of 1776 and October of 2024, and in all the years and all the challenges in between, Americans have been called upon to hang together. We've gotten through it all. At times it was a near miss because good citizens like Hampden-Sydney men have been there, educated to give more and to try harder for the sake of the ideals and aspirations that underpin our nation. The United States is a nation of ideals and aspirations. The ideals not always honored, the aspirations not always achieved, because we are a composite of imperfect men and women. However, we have always chosen to work things out for ourselves in the arduous process which is democracy, a process in which the Hampden-Sydney man must continue to take a leading part, because his education has fostered a commitment to civic responsibility, has learned the value of freedom of expression, and he understands that civil discourse is the only means by which a democratic society is advanced. It is my hope that in the next centuries, Venable Hall will stand in a nation that is more concerned with being good than great, and a college that is committed to the education of good men and good citizens, and among students who learn that unselfish commitment to a free, inclusive, and democratic society is not only the salvation of our own country, but is still the best hope of the world.
Thank you very much, Tommy. I'm so glad so many of our young men are here to hear that message. It was a great inspiration to all of us, but especially to all of you. Hugh just came over. I mean, I've been president now for 8.5 years, and I am still very much an absent-minded professor, though. And Hugh came over to remind me that I didn't mention at all the folks from English Construction who are here, who actually did the renovation. And I apologize. Wave your hand wherever you are, and please. because I'm very likely to forget it if I don't do it now, let me just tell you, you are all invited to stay for the open house that follows this dedication ceremony. We want you to explore every square inch of the building if you'd like. We have several students who have volunteered to show you their room, and so you can see how we have taken every one of the rooms in this building back to what it would have looked like when the building was built. I say that the goal of the renovation was to restore the building to what it looked like, but to have the modern amenities of plumbing, heat and electricity, and of course nowadays most important, Wi-Fi. We will also have refreshments in the lounge, which is at the far east end of the building, and stagger in. And Kevin, his team, the architects, I suspect the folks from English Construction will be scattered around the building, and they'll be happy to answer your questions about the building. So we want that to be a wonderful opportunity for you to see, if you haven't seen it yet, to see this great renovation, and if you've already been in the building, to have a chance to see as much of it as you possibly can explore. I want to talk now, and we have some students who are going to help us unveil this plaque behind me, and I want to say a little bit about that. I think those of you who are going to help, you want to come downstairs or come up here on the landing. Let me just say a little bit about the plaque, and then we will do a ceremonial ribbon cutting, and then we'll have some remarks by Gene Hickok. As we were working on this project, Gene and I obviously had a lot of conversations, and one of the things that we decided was that we wanted to have something in the room that would symbolically recommit the college, the Hampden-Sydney college community, to its important mission every time we held an important event in this room. And we wanted something that would serve as both a rallying point for the importance of the educational work that we do, as well as a perpetual reminder of the importance of that mission of our college. And so the result was this plaque. And we'll now... So please, as part of your visit, read the plaque. A lot of thought and creativity went into the text, and of course it will also honor our most important benefactors for this building project.
I'm going to keep this, turn it into a pocket square. First of all, Kathy asked me to do this because this is the first investment we made together with the Endeavor Legacy Foundation. The foundation was created to promote transformational opportunities in such things as education, historic preservation, qualified housing, history. So it seemed like a beautiful fit. Most importantly, I lived here my freshman year in TG2. TG stood for Tortilla Grande, or ground, I guess. Now it's right there, underneath this building. The steps walk right over where we used to live. And in the evenings, in the fall and the spring, we put lawn chairs out through the window and sit and enjoy the weather. I understand that room is now a bathroom, which seems somehow fitting, I guess. And in the wonderful words that were spoken so far today, no one mentioned the fact that water balloons often descended from the top floors on unsuspecting students, and sometimes even more unsuspecting faculty. I do not anticipate water balloons, at least today, but who knows? Kathy and I started our life together here, and she reminded me when we got here, she once sang at a recital in this room, and her piano students play the piano in the recitals in this room. And so our personal history goes back to, well, frankly, when I arrived in 1968. 1968. That was quite a year for those of you who remember or have studied it. It was a very difficult year in this country, a very difficult year in this world, a very challenging year. And isn't it interesting, those challenges remain? They might have a different face, they might have a different opportunity, they might mean a whole lot of different things, but part of our challenge at this college has always been and always will be to take on the challenges of being a good man and a good citizen, of contributing something of value in this life, something that is far greater than anything we do as individuals. We study history a lot. You cannot be on the grounds here and not recognize the mission of the college. It's on every flag, every sticker. But with my time in education, it is unusual, unique for a college to really care about its mission. And this one has withstood the test of all time, as Tommy pointed out. We study history so we can learn from it. We study the past so we can take inspiration from it. But mostly we study it because we're bound to influence the future. This place has great buildings and great history, but what matters most is what happens when we leave this place. To each of us as individuals and to our families and to our communities, that's the most important thing. It is a cause, a purpose greater than the sum of its parts. What's a good man? Chairman Peoples and I were talking about earlier today. We talk about good men and good citizens, and we don't want to ever make it sound trite because it's terribly important. Well, I found something written in 1895, I think it was 95, by McElwain, the president. It is a letter. Barely able to read it now. It's got the Hampden-Sydney letter. And it's a letter of recommendation he writes about a student from Hampden-Sydney who's looking for employment. Let me read just a section of it. Mr. J.R.C. Brown of Rockingham County, Virginia, is an A.B. graduate of Hampden-Sydney College in the class of 1895. This is where the good man comes in. Mr. Brown is a gentleman of excellent intelligence and scholarship and of undiminished character. During his course of 3 years at Hampden-Sydney, his conduct was without reproach. He has a gentle, kindly manner and an affable, pleasant disposition. His habits are industrious, and his sense of duty is strong. He wishes to obtain a position as a teacher, and I cordially recommend him to any who wish a faithful instructor and a safe guide for their children. In many ways, there can be no higher calling than that. A safe guide to the next generation, to help them understand what we learn here and what must always be taught here. The value of good men, good citizens in the public. The last line of this plaque, we worked on it quite a bit, and you mentioned it, I think. It says in essence this: may this building and this college stand as long as the ideals of liberty, equality, natural rights, and self-government animate the human heart. What a noble purpose. What a noble purpose. And this building, as you said, contains much of the heart of this great school. So thank you for letting Kathy and me be a part of this, but also the be a part of that next generation of Hampden-Sydney men. This building is a gift, an investment to the students, to the faculty and staff, and to everybody who comes here in the future. Hail to Hampden-Sydney. Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, go out into this day in the peace and love of God. May you go in joy. May you go in love. But certainly, after all of this, go in hope.